At this point in our project, we have developed through our project navigator, we go to our constructs. We've developed a basement construct, a main construct, a site construct, and an upper level construct. Now, although these are not finished totally, what we can do is now begin to create sheets. Preliminarily, we may need to add sheets later on and so on, but between the constructs and the views, it's a really good idea for any project to begin to do what we call a preliminary set. Now that can be done by hand on an 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17, where you sort of lay out the project structure and the sheets that you would need to do that. So what we can do is we can go ahead and in our project navigator, we're going to go down to the Sheets tab right there. And if you take a look at it, oftentimes this sheet set view that they have set up is broken down into sub folders or sub sections. I don't like to use those, at least for a project as simple as this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and begin to delete all of these right in here and just keep our base sheet set view title at the top for our project, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through each one of these and we're going to go ahead and delete. Now you can do this once you've selected it. You can just use the delete key on your keyboard and go ahead and continue to delete these. Now if you really want a structure to be able to be broken down into sub disciplines such as plumbing, electrical, structural, we could do that. But in this project, we're going to keep it real simple, and we're going to go ahead and just use a base for our breakdown of sheets. So I'm going to go ahead, even in architecture in general, I'm going to go ahead and delete that also. And at this point, we're ready to start creating the sheets. This is all I should see at the top for this project. I'm going to go ahead and right click on that. I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to go to Sheet. I'm going to get a pop-up window, and I'm going to number this project again with very simple numbering, such as A1, A2, A-3, A-4. Now there's all sorts of national CAD standards. Each office will have its own numbering system, which may break it down by drawing types such as plan, elevations, details, etc. But again, for a project this simple and then for the beginning program here for drafting, let's go ahead and let's just keep it relatively simple. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with A, capital, -1. Now if you take a look at it, as I began to do that, it began to create a file name for that drawing. We are actually creating a new drawing, and it was prefixed by our project number. We set that up when we set up our project at the beginning. We highlighted the fact that we wanted to prefix each sheet or each drawing that we produce with the project number. And the reason for that is because it'll uniquely identify it. So that's for the first one. Let's go ahead. And I'm going to do A dash site plan. So there's our name, our sheet title. Actually, we can leave the A out. I should have just called it site plan. So there's our file name. Now if you take a look at the folder path, that's right where it's going to be going. It's going to be going to where our project is located, and it's going to go into a Sheets subfolder. And remember, when we first set up the project, we were asked to select the sheet template. So one thing you need to check here is make sure that you are using the right one, and that looks like it is the right one. So once we do that, I'm going to hit OK. And if we go back to our project navigator and open that up, you'll now see that we have a new sheet laid out. There's actually two views to see these sheets. One is Sheet Set View, and the other one right in here is what we call Explorer View. Explorer View is relatively simple. Okay, so it looks like we have a temporary wall section. For some reason we have that in there. I'm going to definitely want to delete that because it's not part of our project. Now that may have been a leftover from something else. Now let's go back to our sheet set view. And there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up the first sheet in here. And we're going to make sure that we create all the items that we need so that you can see and bring in X references to it. So let's go ahead and double click and open up our A1 sheet. And if you notice, when you first open that up, it'll bring you into layout or paper space is what we're called. Now the difference between this and one of the previous projects that we did is that we don't have a predetermined our predetermined sheet template does not have a viewport set up. Also, if you go into model space, you notice that it is blank. We have nothing in there at all. Now this could be modified, and if you have already project standards and office standards, you may already have a sheet template that you have personalized or created, which would have all that additional information, including viewports and so on. But in this case, we're going to have to create the viewports, and we're going to have to bring in the content as an XREF from either our constructs or our views. So right here on layout space, we're going to make sure that we create our first viewport. First and most important, let's go ahead and change to our layer right here, which is going to be def points because we don't want it to print. Now out of habit, I just constantly always turn on my Z right in here. I think that's something that's important. The default should be locked. I think that's something that we could probably also do in options, so that when you start your drawings, it'll always come up. Now once we do that, we can go up to our tabs at the top, click on layout, go to rectangular, select rectangular, and let's begin laying out our viewports. Now I don't like to go, and I've explained this previously, right to the corner here, but I can go right into a little bit to the right of that. Now this one can be in the corner because I have an easy way to grip my viewport now by that. And as you can see, this has been now it opened up the window. If I double click it and it gets bold, I can now actually work in model space. I'm going to go ahead and close it out, and I'm going to go back to model space. And what I'm going to begin to do here is I'm going to show you the procedure to bring in content into model space so it'll show up in the sheet layout. Now one thing that a lot of people make mistakes with is that they leave it at def points. So there's two ways to do it. You could have bring in the content first on layer 0 or a specific layer for your XREFs, and then go into the layout and create a viewport in the layout or paper space. I like to do it the other way. Even myself, after doing this for 40 years, I will forget to change it to either 0 or a specific layer that I've designated for my XREFs. Now once I have that set up, what I want to do is I'm going to start to bring in content. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up my my site construct right in here. That's my site. And what I'm going to do at this point is I am going to go ahead and I'm going to save it. Make sure it's the latest and the most current. I'm going to go back to my sheet, and I'm going to go to the Insert tab, left click, go to Attach. I made sure I was on layer 0. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the XREFs that I'm going to need for this sheet. Now I can do that quite a bit with multiple XREFs, and the first thing I need to do is I need to look to see where I have my project and make sure I click on the correct one. So let's go find that for a second. I found my location for it. There it is, my project. I'm going to open that up, and I want to start bringing in the constructs that I need. I could also bring views if I needed some of the views. So let's go ahead and open up the construct. I'm going to go ahead and click on Site Drawing, Open. Now when I insert this previously, when we were doing laying out the levels, we had brought in XREFs as a guide, sort of as an overlay, as literally as an overlay. In this case, and that represents a temporary location for it. In this case, we want it there permanently. We don't have to worry about our levels for this, so we're going to say OK, because this is going to be basically a two-dimensional drawing. Going to click OK, and my drawing is going to come in like that. Now, one thing to notice that my main level did not come in. And the reason for that is, let's go back to our open drawing for the site. If I click on the main level right in there that we had inserted as an XREF into our site construct, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what the status is of that. So we can do that two things by going into our insert references here. We can click right on this little arrow, or we can go down here to our manage XREFs. And if you take a look at our main right here, it's loaded, but it's loaded as an overlay. So what happens is, as an overlay, it will not transfer over to any subsequent sheet or view that you would put it into. Again, you might be able to see it in a view, but when you finalize it, you won't be able to see that. So we could test that theory regarding whether you can at least visually see it or not in a view. All right, so let's go back to our site plan right in here. And even before we come in and bring in our second XREF, which is going to be the main level, let's go ahead and let's go back into layout space. I'm going to go ahead and double click in here, and I'm going to zoom out, and there is our plan. I'm going to turn off the grid for this right now, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set my scale to what my plan is going to be at. Now our site plan is going to be at 1/8 inches, going to 1/8 inches equal to a foot, and I'm just going to pan this and move it sort of where I want it. Now I'm not going to start editing this. I'm not going to start removing this north arrow and put in my new north arrow, or try to remove some of this excess information that we have in here just yet. I'm going to go ahead and do that later on when we start refining our sheets and beginning to crop and add annotations and some additional information. What I do want to do at this point is bring in my second XREF, which is going to be our main floor plan. So I'm going to go back to Insert, Attach. I should now default to the right project in the right folder. Do Open. Once again, I'm going to do it as an attachment, and because we've lined up our entire project, all I need to do is really click OK. I'm not going to worry about the Z at this point, whether I need to elevate it or bring it down, since we are only going to be representing this on a two-dimensional piece of paper, our deliverable, so it really does not matter what we're going to be seeing there. So I'm going to do OK, and there it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's save the drawing. Let's go back to our layout space, and with my viewport closed, I'm going to zoom in. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of layers that I can turn off that I do not need for this drawing. There's going to be additional line work that I'm going to be needing. I also want to change the representation of these walls. I could hatch them, but what I really want to do is I want to go ahead and I'm going to change my representation down here, right here with display configuration. I'm going to change that from medium detail to presentation. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my viewport. That I'm going to change my medium detail here to presentation, and what should happen is that my walls get solid. I'm going to go ahead and double click out here and close it. Once again, there's a lot of line work in here that's represented by the 3D gutters, etc., that I'm going to eventually be removing. So let's go ahead and zoom all to see what this looks like. That looks fantastic. Let's go ahead and save our sheet right in here, and let's start creating our other sheets. Now I could do this all in sequence before I even get in there and start creating my viewports, So that's what I'm really going to do. So let's go ahead and do A-1. I'm going to click right up in here and do new. I'm going to do sheet. This one's going to be A-2. Go to the sheet title. This one is going to be basement floor plan. Everything else looks good. I'm going to do OK. Create a new one. A-3. Main floor plan. Sheet. A-4. Upper floor plan. Now for this one we're going to do A-5. Now this is going to be our roof plan. We haven't really done too much with setting that up, but again we can do this and modify it later on if we have to. Do OK. Now after the roof plan we're going to go ahead and begin our elevations, and we know we're going to have 2 sheets of elevations, so that is going to be A-6. Elevations. One more. A-7. Elevations. Do OK. We've got 2 elevation sheets, and we're going to do a new sheet, and our last sheet is going to be, at least for now, A-8, and we're going to do sections. And do OK. Now what we can do is go individually through each one of these and begin to bring in our X references, just like what we did on this one. So let's go ahead and let's start with the next one. I'm going to start with basement floor plan. I'm going to open that up. Once again, I don't have my viewport set, so there's a couple things I can do. Always check. I'm going to go to the Home tab. Right now I'm on layer 0, so I may be fluctuating back and forth on whether I create my viewport first or I create my XREF section in modeling in the model space first. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and keep it consistent. I'm going to go back to my def points. I'm going to go up to layout, rectangular, bring that down to the bottom right. Then I'm going to go ahead and go to model space, switch to 0 for a layer that I have created for specific XREF. So I can go my insert tab, attach, and for this one I'm going to go ahead and do basement, open. Once again I want to make sure I'm in the reference type is attachment. This can stay the way it is. I'm going to do OK. It's coming in where we've designated. Let's go back to our space in here, our layout. I'm going to pan this over and just sort of center it. And then finally what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the scale down here for the scale, the architectural scale that we want for our floor plans. In this case it's going to be 1/4 inch. It's going to bring it in. I'm going to go ahead and pan it, just center it for now. We're going to be adjusting this later on. I'm going to zoom all in paper space, and there we're exactly where we want to be with this floor plan for now. Now notice I'm not going to change this one to medium detail because we want to see all of the detail, all the hatching that we have on here. So let's go ahead and let's follow the same procedure, and we can do that for each one. So let's double click main floor plan, go to the home tab, make sure we're in the layer that we want. Now take a look at this. I am on layer 0. So to me that seems to be that I might have to change this all the time. So switch back to depth points. But as I mentioned previously, I wanted to stay consistent. So the first thing I need to do here is switch to depth points. I'm going to go back to my layout, rectangular. Up to there. Switch to model space. Switch my layer. Insert. Attach. Main. For my constructs, open, attachment in my attach external reference window, click OK. There it is right there. Let's go back to our paper space, open up the viewport, and pan this towards the middle. Now the reason I pan it towards the middle is when I change my scale, sometimes if it's off to the side, it'll disappear off of my viewport window. So by centering it, I'm sort of stopping that from happening. Okay, there, that fell right into the middle right there. I'm going to just slightly adjust it, close my viewport, and I should be saving these as I go along. So I'm just going to go back to each one of these and save them. Let's open up our basement. I'm going to save it. And the floor plan we've already saved. So let's go ahead and open that up again. And let's save it one more time. Let's go ahead and let's do our next one. So let's open up our upper floor plan. Go to our home tab, change our layer to depth points. Go to our layout tab, rectangular. Set this up down to that corner. Go to our model tab. Now let's make sure, switch back from depth points. This is such a common mistake that we've got to always be aware that we got to switch these layers back and forth. What happens is if you bring in your XREF on depth points, when you go to print your sheet, it won't show up. So it's something very important that you need to do. So let's go ahead, insert tab, attach. So it's going to be upper, open. Attachment is fine on our attach external reference. Click OK. Just came in perfectly. Let's go ahead and open up our viewport by switching back to layout space. Center this again. Change our scale, 1/4 inch. And if we need to pan this, just pan it over just a little bit more. That looks good. Close it. I'm going to zoom all just to take a closer look at this. That looks good. Again, there's a bunch of layers we're going to be turning off. If you take a look at this, you can see that we've got all our chimney caps showing. We've got our gutters showing. That's one of the reasons why we put these on specific layers, because it's going to be really easy to turn those layers off so they're not cluttering our drawing. Let's go ahead and save our upper floor plan. And I'm going to go ahead and now go to the roof plan. Let's open that up. Switch to depth points. And I'm going to go back to the layout. Rectangular. Okay, that looks great. Now we don't have any content to bring into this one yet. We're going to be creating that later on. So we can save this one right at this point and be aware that we already have a sheet ready to be accepting either XREFs or content directly. Let's go to Elevations A6, go to our Home tab, go back to Depth Points, Layout, Rectangular, and click that onto there. Okay. So let's go to our model. We're going to be bringing in our elevations in 1 minute, but I'm going to go back and check the roof plan in here and make sure that I went ahead and changed this viewport to depth point layers, which I did. So that's excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go back to our elevations. Now, up to now, what we've been doing is we've been going to our constructs, we've been going here to our attach, and we've been selecting our constructs. So let's go ahead and click attached. Now, our elevations are not in any of these constructs. We created them in views. So what we're going to do is open up our views, and remember we created a view called elevations. So let's go ahead and click on that, and under attachment, that's fine. Let's do OK. And what we have is we have all of this came up just like that. All right, so let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is bring this, we're going to modify this later on, but for now we're going to go ahead and bring these two in on one sheet, and we're going to bring our side elevations in on the second sheet. So let's go back to our layout. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to pan this over to about center spot right in there. And these also are going to be at 1/4 inches equal to a foot. So I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to pan that over. Now, sometimes you'll pan over and you'll begin to see parts of this, but that's part of the editing that we're going to be doing a little bit later. Plus, we're going to be lining these up a little bit better, etc. So I want to make sure that I brought this in the right layer. If you look at that, I made an error. I did not switch back to the 0 layer or the XREF layer that may be created. So with that highlighted, I want to make sure, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I switch that to layer 0. I'm going to double check. Perfect. Close that up. And if you want to double check it, our entire XREF is on layer 0. Let's go back to our elevation sheet, our initial one here. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I'm going to go to the next one. Let's open that one up. So I want to switch layers. Switch to depth points. Go to my layout tab. Rectangular. Okay, that looks great. Let's go back to our model. Switch back from depth points to 0. Insert. Attach. Now we're still in the views folder, subfolder, so let's go ahead and click elevations again. Do open. Attachment is fine. Once the XREF comes in, let's go back to our layout space, open up the viewport. Let's pan over, and this time we're going to go ahead and center the other two before we go ahead and change our scale. And let's go ahead and pan this over a little bit to the left. Now, as you can tell, there's a lot of information we don't want there, okay? But we can always modify that later on. This is just our initial preparation and setup for our sheets. So all that looks great. Let's go ahead and let's do the last one. Going to open up A8 sections, and what we want to do here is we don't have content yet. We haven't created a construct or anything yet for our wall sections or our stair section that are going to be on this sheet. So what we want to do is just set it up to begin with. We're going to go to the Home tab. Let's go ahead and switch to depth points. Go to our Layout tab, left click, rectangular, click, bring that into here. And we're pretty well set up for it right now. Now, one thing you've got to do is, because if not, you're going to keep drawing everything, any new lines that you draw or anything you bring in as an XREF or whatever, it's going to come in on depth points. Let's just switch out of that for now. Now let's take a look really quickly at our title block in here. If you take a look at it, some of the things that you set up in the data, the project details, etc., in the navigator here under project. So we went into here and we took a look at our detailed information in here. The only thing we've set up in here is John Doe, but if you take a look at it, we've also set up project name, project number, a few different things, including our sheet numbers when we set up the sheets. Now you take a look at this. There's our project name and our project number attached to it. There's the name of the owner that we put in it. Now these we can edit, and we'll have a separate lesson on how to create your own title blocks tied into a template. And then if you come down in here, there's your project number, there's the CAD file that was created, there's the sheet title that we gave it, and there's the sheet number. Now we're not going to use this down in here, so we can just leave this as A-8. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom all. And what we now have is we have a full set of architectural sheets for a simplified project. In reality, if you were doing a residence in South Florida, you would be needing a lot more sheets than this, including details, including maybe what we call enlarged plans. You may have separate sheets for your schedules. In our case, we're going to include the schedules inside one of our floor plan sheets. So this concludes our video on how to initially set up our sheets.